Well, now it feels inauthentic.
It's not. Now we're just going to talk. We're still having a conversation. It's just happens to be recorded. So we were talking about our
No.
jujitsu. I
Battle
was going to say
scars.
injuries,
Yeah.
but they're not injuries. I had a coach in high school that used to say, he's like, you need to know the difference between being hurt and being injured. You can play hurt, you can't play injured. And
Yeah.
so, you can see I got a little cut right there, got a little goose egg on the back of my head. You've got a little black eye there.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you before I hit record that I actually, since I was in high school, I like the scars, man. I like the nicks and the dings and the bangs and I like all that stuff because it means that you're living. Like imagine
Yeah.
walking around and you felt 100%. Like how shitty would you feel if you felt 100%? I would. I'd be like, what have I done that's hard lately?
Yeah.
You
Totally.
know?
Well, it's someone on the Facebook group on the Order of Man Facebook group. He said something about I've been working out religiously and I'm always sore. How do I stop this from
Awesome.
happening? And my response was, I love being sore. Like I love
I do
having a
too.
great workout and the next day my chest is super tight. Like
It
I
means you
think
did
something's
something,
wrong when
right?
I'm not sore. Yeah. Yeah. I actually look forward to it. It doesn't help with consulting sometimes. I remember I had a client in Phoenix. I went down there day one. I'm working that night, found a local jujitsu gym and trained super hard. And I got a really bad black eye. Like it was puffy, it was swollen. It
Awesome.
was just really bad one. And the next day I went back to that client's site and no one asked any questions
Really?
whatsoever.
Nobody even
No,
asked? That's weird.
no, because who knows what story they were having, right? It's like, oh man, like you must
Yeah,
went to
but
the
why
bar
wouldn't they
last night,
ask?
got in a fight. Yeah, I don't know.
I would want to know. I'd be like, awesome black eye. Like tell me the
Yeah,
story. I got to know the story here. Nobody
I
even
would have
asked.
too. No one
That's
asked. I was
funny.
like, and I felt awkward going, ignore the black eye. I did that eventually because everyone kept like, I could tell people were distracted. They're like, why does he have a black eye? So then I
I
started
wouldn't
telling
have
like,
told
oh,
them
I
to
do some
ignore
martial
it.
arts.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
I would have used that, man. I bet you did business with them though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did business with him, so
I
it
know it
was
wasn't
fun.
because of your sales skills. So it had to have been something else.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Anyways, man, I
Uh,
like the injuries. I got an issue with my pinky right now. I don't know if it's like I don't know what's going on with it. It's like it's weird. I don't know if it's
Something's wrong.
dislocated or I don't know, but I'm like, this is awesome. It's like 2 times bigger than it should be, and I love it. Like it should. That's how it should. That's how a man's hand should look, you know. So I have no problem
Yeah.
with it at all.
Be- But the worst, and this has happened to me yesterday. I don't know. I think it's because I took a week off, and your skin kind of gets sensitive. Have you done that where you take a
Totally.
week off and you come back, and all of a sudden you're losing skin all over the place, like your feet are losing skin because it
One thing
just
we
gets
just did
soft and
actually,
easy?
yes, yes, totally. And one thing we just started doing over the past couple of weeks is training in the evenings, no gi, and my knees are raw, dude. Like
Yeah,
the tops
yeah,
of my feet and my toes, they're good. They're solid because I've been training for almost 2 years now in gi. So like they're good. But I was training no gi and my knees and shins are just raw because they're
yeah. They
not
feel
used to
like
be just rubbing on the
bruised
mat.
almost.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I am not exaggerating at all. Both of my feet have probably like an inch spaces of no skin, and my one foot has about
Ooh.
four of them, and my left foot has two. And I trained on Friday, and I got all those in one training session. And you don't think about it when you train, and then you walk up to the shower and you're like,
Oh,
oh
it
shit, it'd be
stings.
painful. Yeah. So you're like, oh, it's like burning or whatever. I get out of the shower and I'm out of band-aids in my bag. So I'm like, oh no. So you just slide your socks on and go to work.
Socks
and
and
then you,
jeans on
and
and just rubbing
yeah.
on them.
And then you go home and you're like, ready to take the sock off, and you just
Oh, and
rip
it's
the sock
stuck to
off and
your
they're all
foot.
bleeding again. Yeah. It's like, oh,
Moral of the story,
so
don't bitch out on
miserable.
training for any reason at all.
Totally. You get soft. You get soft.
I last night, so we trained last night, and my wife was out of town. She was picking up her sister who's visiting us this week, and I had my 4 kids, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to go to training, because that's a pretty convenient excuse, right? Like, I've got
Yeah,
4 kids. Like, the guys
I
don't
got to
want to.
take care of the kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this is what we call noble obstacles, right? They're noble
Yeah.
because you're actually doing the right thing, but they're obstacles because you're using it as an excuse to keep you from doing what you should be doing. So I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm bringing them. So I brought them last night and told them, just be respectful, just hang out in the corner. And yeah, I jetted a little bit earlier, but I was proud that I got my training in, even with the 4 kids, like hearing them scream and they were strangling each other. And I'm like, but I got the training in, man. It's all good.
It's good. It's good for them to see
It's
like
good for
that.
them.
That's normal. Yeah.
It's good for them to see me get my ass handed to me, actually. It's like, because that's really what training consists of for me. It's like, it's not even, I don't even know if you'd call it training as much as just getting your ass kicked. And, so they're watching dad go, and get like choked and get my arm bent the wrong way. And then I get up and do it again. I have no ego at this point with jiu-jitsu. I don't. And that's probably going to get more and more so, but I don't know. I just go in there and just expect that it's going to be painful. And occasionally I might, by the grace of God or the jiu-jitsu gods or whoever it is, get something that actually semblance is some sort of martial art. But outside of that, it's just a bunch of flailing around.
Yeah. Survival.
That's what it is for sure.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, let's get to some questions. I think we got some good ones today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, it's good to see you, too. It's been like 2 months since we actually did a podcast together.
I know.
Appreciate you holding down the fort, man.
Yeah. No, it's you know how it is. It's fun. You know what I mean? It's always valuable to read these questions and think and put yourself in check when you respond to a question and in the back of your head going, yeah, I need to do that better.
Oh,
so
isn't that what this is all about?
Want, but yeah,
people tell me that, like, what makes you the expert? I'm like, bro, if you only knew, whenever I make a post or a comment, I'm not even talking to you. I'm talking to myself. You need to do this because you are screwing things up. So people are thinking I'm talking to them. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to myself. And you happen to just be listening to our conversations with ourselves and what we know we should be doing,
Yeah. It's like an internal dialogue in the morning of what we need to work on.
It's a journal, man. Like, I look at social media like that. It's a journal. I'll post something on Instagram or Twitter or wherever, and guys are like, oh, this is such a great thought. This is exactly me. I'm like, oh, really? Like, the only reason I wrote it is because this is the same thing I was dealing with, 18 hours earlier, and this is like my answer to myself. Like, do this thing and you'll be better.
Yeah, I mean, you've said that in the past, which I really appreciated, is I'm marketing to myself, right? I'm grabbing the things that interest me, that I need, and I'm just regurgitating them. And there's a whole lot of guys that are in the same boat as you, so it works.
I mean, we had a guy today, he posted something on a post that I had made in our Facebook group about the podcast I did yesterday with Nikki Ballou, and he said something like, oh, what makes this guy the expert, or something like that. And I'm like, he's not an expert. He didn't claim to be an expert. I'm not an expert. I never claimed to be an expert. I'm a man, and I have a desire to be better, and so that's it, period. Like, end of story, full stop. There's nothing else outside of that makes either one of us qualified to tell you what you should do. These are just things that have worked for us, and if you want to embrace them, cool. And if you don't, and you think being a man means something else, right on. Get after it. Yeah. I wish you the best. I truly do.
And how much of being an expert is just the ability to regurgitate information that you've retained through some other means, it's like,
that's actually a positive. That's a positive look on it. I think most experts, they're just saying things that make them sound important. It's like you see these people. Yeah. So one guy I think of immediately that comes offhand is Jordan Peterson. Obviously very, very intelligent. When he speaks, you can almost see him thinking. That's how I look at it when I hear him speak. I think to myself, this guy's just thinking out loud. He's obviously very intelligent. But one of the unintended consequences is that because he's smart, and the way that he communicates, really to himself, but he just vocalizes his thoughts to himself. That's the best way I can explain it. People have begun to think that if I just use big and fancy words, that somehow people will think I'm special or I'm intelligent. And then you have like these comments that I see a lot on Instagram and Twitter, and they're using these words, and I'm like, I don't even know what in the world you're trying to say. Like, I legitimately have to have the dictionary pulled up when I'm trying to decipher what it is you're trying to say. And it's weird. I don't know if it's because people want to make others believe they're smarter than they actually are. I mean, you and I are dumb Southern Utah, small town rednecks. Like, maybe that's an issue that only you and I have.
Maybe that's our problem.
I'm like, what's he saying? And everybody else is like, you don't get this? I'm like, no, I don't. I have no idea what he's saying right now.
Yeah. Like, I pronounce words wrong all the time, but I really think, like, because I have this conversation with my wife quite a bit. We have a lot of people in our circles that are what I would classify as intellectuals, right?
Yes.
Very well educated, very well spoken, but have lacked serious progress and success in life. And I use that as an analogy to kind of remind my wife that there's a major difference from being intellectually smart and being wise. And the older I get, the more I look back at my upbringing, the more I look back at my dad that's a drop out of college dairy farmer, and I start going, there's probably more wisdom on that side of the street than I've been given it credit for. And just because I was able to memorize something out of a book and regurgitate it, but never learned how to apply it, doesn't make you successful. And it does.
Yeah.
I know so many people that are so well educated and have zero success in life.
Or smart. It doesn't even make you smart. Your college diploma doesn't make you smart. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, I don't know. It's funny how our society has kind of latched onto certain things to define you as like successful, but they don't translate. And
well, I've listened to, I think you're dead on with that. I've listened to people, especially in Southern Utah. I mean, we had the benefit of growing up with these, ranchers, for example. And this is what I'm about to say is not to diminish ranching it by any means, but the ranching
doesn't matter. They don't even know how to listen to a pod. They don't even know what a podcast is.
It's true. They're not listening to this podcast. So, you wouldn't consider this quintessential rancher as this highly educated individual, and yet the way they say things and the way they view life is, and I can't even think of anything right offhand, but they'll just say this like one little punchy sentence and you're like, holy shit, man, you just unlocked the key to life. Like, do you realize how powerful that one statement is? And they're like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I was just castrating a cow earlier. Like, that's all. And I love it, man, because truth and wisdom can be found everywhere. And sometimes it's often found, a lot of the times I think it's often found in places that we wouldn't traditionally be led to believe that you can find it there, between the legs of a cow as you're castrating a cow, or on a hunt as you're gutting a deer, and so we got to look for those things outside of academia, because I think there's a lot of wisdom to be found about life that doesn't exist inside the walls of universities.
Yeah, and when we look at life from a Stoic perspective, it's all about preparing for death and living a good life.
Mm-hmm.
And academia doesn't really help in that area at all. So
I think it does. I think it does, so long as you apply it. It's like, it's the old adage that I can't even think of the term right offhand, but knowledge. Some people say, well, knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power when applied. That's the full thought process. Knowledge alone is not power. Totally. It's powerful when it's applied. So if I look at, for example, a medical doctor, and this doctor has a degree and he spent 8 to 10 years in formal education, and then he goes out and applies it. I think of my buddy Jaron Levitt, for example. He's an OBGYN, and he's going out and applying it, and he loves his life, he loves his practice, he loves delivering babies and bringing babies into the world. I'm like, okay, well, this is knowledge applied. It's not just education, it's actual knowledge applied, and that's what makes it powerful.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. And I was kind of thinking more from the area of like fulfillment, right? Like something that transcends our job, something that transcends, our education, and it's more about relationships and experiences and fulfillment and purpose. I think that's why a little bit more from Stoicism than we would from learning something, in general. But
agreed, and I think that's why some of the most intelligent people that I know or had interactions with are also some of the most miserable. because they're not applying this information. They have these amazing degrees and they have this incredible access to information and knowledge, and they're just not applying it. And so it's a little bit like, in a way, being on a treadmill or an elliptical, right? Like, you're still moving, you're still getting the job done, kind of, you're still exercising your muscles, but you're not getting anywhere. You know that. And so imagine, instead of being on a treadmill, like, actually go for a run. What are you going to experience? What are you going to see? Who are you going to interact with? What thoughts are you going to have in your mind? How does the cold feel on your body? Or if it starts to rain and you're miserable, do you push through? And so the treadmill and the elliptical are a simulation of reality. It's like, no, actually go out and experience. Oh, but it's cold. Yeah, that's actually the point. It's cold. The point is that that's real life, and that you're going to have to experience hardship and deal with that and overcome that and work through it. That's actually why one of the reasons I like Andy Frisella's 75 Hard is because one of the workouts per day is supposed to be done outdoors. Rain, snow, sunshine, whatever it may be. And last year, as I was doing it, and I know this because we're starting to get into our cold season here, is I was literally tromping around in the snow while it was snowing. And I was just like completely bundled up. And yet it was significantly more rewarding and fulfilling being out there in the snow, pushing through something that I know a lot of people just wouldn't do because it wasn't extremely comfortable. I wasn't climate controlled. The elevation wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect temperature. But that's what made it more rewarding and more fulfilling, even though it was infinitely harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we answer some questions today?
I don't know.
I don't. We call this an Ask Me Anything.
Go back to jiu-jitsu.
I'm trying to wonder if we should call it, like, instead of an Ask Me Anything, it's like, just shut up and listen. Don't ask questions. Just listen.
The ramblings of
the ramblings. That's right. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about jiu-jitsu. You know what we should do one day? I think maybe we can do this one day. Is we could answer every single question with a jiu-jitsu reference. And that's all. Like, this is the jiu-jitsu Ask Me Anything. And so anything anybody asks, we always tie it back into jiu-jitsu.
In a meaningful way. And you
like legitimate way, like, not just making stupid things up. Yeah.
Right, we're doing that next week. Like, that would be hard. Yeah, anyone that would think that would be hard, it would not be hard at all.
All right, we're doing that next week. Do it. We're doing the jiu-jitsu Ask Me Anything. And that doesn't mean you have to ask questions about jiu-jitsu. It just means you have to ask your normal question, and then we'll answer it from a jiu-jitsu frame of reference. There we go. Yeah,
I love it.
That's next week.
Iron Council questions. Should we do it?
Yeah, I'm ready, man. Let's do it.
Okay. All right, let's do it. All right, so we're fielding these questions from the Iron Council. That's our exclusive brotherhood. That's part of the Order of Man movement. To learn more, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. John LaRosa, building healthy copying mechanisms to replace shitty ones. Oh, coping.
Coping.
This is exactly what we're talking about.
Dude, I understand your Southern Utah drawl. When you say something, I'm like, right. Guys, let me just tell you. So for those of you who weren't born and raised in Southern Utah, I'll go ahead and translate Kip his questions and his responses for you. Coping mechanism. Say it again. His coping.
Building healthy coping mechanisms to replace shitty ones.
It's tough on this one because I don't know what you're coping with necessarily, but
and it might vary, right?
Yeah, it might. But I think generally, like, let's just zoom out right here. I think generally I would just say, and I'm going to actually pull a page from your book, Kip, on this one is, what meaning have you assigned your experience? So if and I'm just thinking out loud here, I don't know if this is John's situation, but let's just say you were sexually abused, or you've gone through a divorce, or you lost a job, or you had to deal with a medical condition, or you had to declare bankruptcy. I mean, any number of things that could have happened. I think what most guys will naturally do, myself included, will think to themselves initially, why is this happening to me? What a shitty situation. This is happening to me. If only I could get past these couple of things. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. And so we assign that and automatically assume that this is a negative situation. I had a guy on the Facebook group today. He said, that he feels broken. He used the term, I feel broken. He's going through a separation, which is leading to a divorce, it looks like. And he says, I'm broken. And I said, brother, you're not broken, man. Like, you're in a tough situation. But I'll tell you what, even during my own separation with my wife, which fortunately it did work out for us, it doesn't always, but that was a cathartic moment for me. That was an opportunity for me to get right, to fix some things that weren't in check. And without that moment in time, and it was just a moment, you guys would not be listening to this Order of Man podcast. There's no way. I would be a financial advisor still, and I'd be making a moderate income, and I'd be mildly happy, and I'd be a mediocre husband and wife, and that would be my life, like a lot of guys' are. But instead, I used that moment in time and decided that this was happening for me. And what was I going to do to make myself better, not in spite of the situation, but because of the situation? You know, like, how can you improve? So whether you're going through a bankruptcy or some past trauma, whatever it may be, instead of saying, why did this happen to me? And if only my life was better, and if only I didn't go through that situation, then I would be ... Instead, start thinking to yourself, why did this happen to me in a positive way? Why did this happen for me? How am I a better individual? Or how can I become a more capable and strong man because of this situation? And I talk about this all the time. I grew up without a father figure, permanent father figure in my life. And at the time, it was miserable. I remember when my mother went through a separation, an ultimate divorce with my last stepfather. And I remember vividly thinking, why me? Why is this happening to me? And now I look back and I'm like, I'm so grateful.
Like, you internalized that separation, you know, like her getting divorced, like that, you felt the impact to you
completely. And I thought it was against me. You know, I was older at the time. I was probably 14, 15 years old. And so I thought I was old enough to acknowledge or to make the connection that this was happening to me. But I look at it now and think, what an incredible blessing. What an incredible blessing that I grew up without a father. I mean, I would love to have been connected with my father, and we were connected in a way. I would have loved to have been more deeply connected, but what a beautiful blessing that I wasn't, because I don't know that I would be the same father that I am to my kids. I don't. And I'm happy and satisfied and fulfilled with what my life is. And that's an experience of all of the situations and circumstances that led up to this. So how do you cope with it? Reframe your thought process. You're thinking about it negatively. I have to cope. I have to deal with this situation. No, this is a blessing. This is a benefit in disguise. And it's hard to see when you're in the moment. So what can you do? Surround yourself with good people. Talk with people who have gone through similar circumstances and situations as you. And they'll tell you, they'll show you, look, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You don't see it. I can see it. In fact, I'm standing in the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm going to illuminate the path for you. So find good people. Tactically, I would suggest that you distract yourself when you start to get in your mind and start to go down this path that isn't good for you. But ultimately realizing that this is a good thing for you. You just can't see it yet, but I promise it will be a good thing for you. But or not, but that's entirely within your control. You do have control over the way you frame this.
And I think as some people will look to that, and they'll look at the circumstance and say, okay, well, how can me being abandoned, let's say, be good for me, right? And I would even pause and say, who said that you're being abandoned and that it's because of you? I love the analogy of like rose-colored glasses, right? Like, we put on sunglasses and we walk around, and it's like, you know, I don't know if you've done this, but I'm like, oh man, that sunset's so beautiful and so pretty outside. And then I lift up my glasses and I'm like, oh, it's a little bit more dull, right? It looked prettier with my glasses on. But I think we look through life as a lens too. And when certain things happen, not only are we creating meaning, but sometimes that meaning's not true. It's not even reality.
It's never objectively true, Kip. Never.
Yeah. But I think really pausing and going, whoa, wait a second. Like, I'm really creating something that out of nothing here. And I'm adding a lot more meaning to this than what I even should, you know, and it's okay to realize you're doing it. but it's very powerful to pause and realize you are. And I don't know, Ryan, I'm actually interested in your thought about this, is like, because I used to think that you could stop it. Like I used to be in that camp of like, oh, positive thinking and reframe your mind, and those thoughts are quote unquote bad. And I don't think that's true. I don't think people can stop that from happening. I think people that are effective, they are able to pause and be present with their thought process. And then to your point, refocus their thoughts elsewhere to be more constructive. But I don't think you stop that from occurring. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think that generally negative and toxic people are delusional. So they interpret everything outside of the context that it really is. And that's what I was saying earlier, is that it's never objectively true. I mean, there might be a situation that is objective, like I got in a car crash. I am going through a separation. But that's not usually what we're talking about. Usually what we're talking about is I am going through a divorce because my wife is a bitch. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's subjective. Like, that is not objectively true. And so when you get into these cycles of toxicity and negativity, you're actually being delusional. You're not operating in reality, because that isn't the reality. It's your interpretation of it, and there might be some validity to it. There might be some situations that makes you think that, but that is not objectively true. I think the most successful people, and this is actually true in an interesting context to look at this in, is survivors. So survivors of major events, emergency situations, natural disasters, being alone, being stranded. They're very realistic about their life and their prospects. Because what was happening is if you're overly optimistic, hey, I'm going to be rescued. I'm going to be rescued. Like, everything's fine. I'm going to be rescued. And then you don't do anything about your situation, and you die because the rescue doesn't come as quickly as you would have hoped or liked or thought. The opposite of that is overly negative. Like, I'm going to die and everything's horrible and this is bad. And then it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're not focused on what you can do to keep yourself alive, because you've already signed away your fate. But generally, the people who thrive and succeed and excel are the ones who are realistic. Hey, this is a bad situation. And I better be prepared, and I better anticipate situations and things that are coming up, and then creating plans and making provisions and doing everything I can. So they're not operating from a position of delusion. They're very realistic about their prospects, but then they thrust themselves into the work of keeping themselves alive. I watched this show over the past couple of weeks called Alone. I don't know if you've seen it. A lot of guys probably have. And they take 10 or 12 contestants and they just throw them out in this crazy environment. I was watching this Arctic environment in northern Canada, like super far north. And they put these people out there, and there was people who were, overly secure in their abilities, and they were out first. And there's people who were really negative and down, and then they lost. And the guy that won happened to be somebody who was like, this is hard and this is tough, and I'm dealing with these circumstances, and here's this predator that's trying to steal my food. And he just dealt with it in reality and just fixed like each situation head on as it came up, and he won. And that's life. That's life. Objective, deal with what you need to deal with, and drive on.
And that's why I think you interviewed John Gary Bishop a ways back. And that's one thing that I really got from that podcast interview, as well as from his book, is like, he talks about our expectations. And sometimes when we hold on to the should or it shouldn't be a certain way, it almost hinders us from dealing in that reality. Because instead of dealing with what is so, right, instead of dealing with a broken marriage, we just focus on, well, it's her fault and it shouldn't be this way, and I shouldn't have to deal with this. And it's interesting, just that thought process kind of like you get stuck with holding on to what it should and should not be like, and holding on to it. And it almost prevents you from dealing with what is so.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love so much about his book, because it's so powerful, whether it's surviving or your marriage or anything else. The longer we sit there and judge it and, oh, it shouldn't be this way and I shouldn't have to, or whatever, that's all hindering us from taking action and addressing reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's
All
drive
right,
on.
next question.
So we got through one
I'm
question
not
so
used
far.
to
We're 40
talking to
minutes
someone
into
as
this
part
thing.
of the, yeah, yeah. And I'm not used to talking to someone. I'm like, all right, Dan Harrison, with the holidays coming up, there will be a lot of discussions and arguments at family gatherings surrounding social and political issues. What advice do you have for men on picking battles around the dinner table? That's interesting that he chose that verbiage. When do we voice and defend opinions? And when do we just smile and let people talk in the name of preserving the peace? Any tips for us staying calm and being the bigger person when people are running their mouths?
Yeah, what's your objective?
A lot. Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Are you trying to win a debate? And in that case, make everything your battle. And then you can see if you can win everything. That's not what I want to do. Like, I want to enjoy my time with my family. And so my mom was here a couple of weeks ago, and we have a lot of similar viewpoints and a lot of differing viewpoints. And she said some things that I'm like, I don't agree with that at all. And, you know, sometimes I poked and prodded because I enjoy it. And other times I'm like, Mom, whatever. I love you. Let's go to dinner. Because my goal was to have a deeper bond and connection with my mother. You know, like, what's your goal, man? Is it to have a good time and to enjoy and be thankful and grateful for each other and spend time together and laugh and play and think about old times and think about upcoming memories and times that you guys will create? Or is it to win them to your cause? I can't imagine that that's anybody's goal for the holidays. Like, I'm going to win these people over. So just don't. I don't understand. I get it. I shouldn't say I don't understand. I actually do understand because we're passionate, right? We're excited. We're passionate. We're enthusiastic. We think this will be better. Whatever side of the aisle we're on, by the way. It's like we think this will be better for us and the country and people. And so there's a lot to be passionate about. But ultimately, what's your objective? What's your goal? We talk about intentionality in the Iron Council a whole lot. Just be intentional. Are you here to enjoy time with your family? Or are here to debate on every little issue? And look, I don't think you have to roll over either. You know, if Kip, you and I are hanging out and you happen to say something I don't agree with, I'd be like, you know, Kip, I really don't agree with that. But that's another conversation. Let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pretend that I agree with you. I don't think you have to do that either. But you know, I'll give you another example. I was hunting a couple of weeks ago in Colorado. And Amal Easton came, and he and I had some lively discussions. I mean, we disagreed on a lot, and we agreed on a lot, and we had some lively discussions. Neither one of us got disrespectful towards each other. And then we went and hunted together. And there was a time to have a lively discussion in the evening about some things, and he was inquisitive, and I was inquisitive, and we were challenging each other in a respectful way. And then we decided to play poker, and we weren't talking about those things. We were playing poker and jack and jaw with each other about other things, you know? So it's like, what is appropriate? What's it? Be intentional, and just most of the stuff, you can just let it ride. You really can. You just let it ride. It's okay.
Well, and wouldn't you agree that like our people have been like, let's say Dan's objective is like, hey, my objective is to make a point and to convince. But I think far too often we actually think that like, even if we're an amazing debaters, that people go, oh, you know what? You're right, Ryan. I'm going to change my opinion on that. Like, most people they're not having the discussion with you to even consider, you know what I mean, viewpoints, right?
I don't think that's always true.
And so
I think generally you're right. But like, I go back to this example with Amal, like he shared some things with me that I'm like, you know, I never considered that way. I still think what I said is right.
Were you in a position, but you're in a position to at least listen. I actually think that when I think of guys arguing with family members at a table, and maybe this is just insightful of my family, but I don't think those are prime conversations to be like, no one's inputting anything, right? Everyone's just listening to themselves run their mouths about some opinion.
Yeah.
No one's considering other viewpoints. But
so here's one tactic that's been helpful for me, and I've only learned this because I podcast, is just ask questions. Refrain from making any statements and just ask questions. Hey, Kip, you said something about Biden. And I'm really curious, like, why do you think that?
I think he smells kids because they have like baby lotion on or something, and he likes the smell.
Oh, geez, here we go. I want to say something so bad, but again, in the spirit of this answer, I'm not going to say anything. Okay, well, whatever. Like you just, but I don't even know where to go with that. But inquisitiveness is a powerful skill set, and you actually have to genuinely mean it, because otherwise it's like pandering to somebody and talking down. Like, you think
trying to catch them. Yeah.
Yes, and so you're trying to tee them up and set them, and people can see right through that. So you have to actually be curious. Oh, that's a really interesting perspective. Why do you think that? And then when they say something weird like Biden likes to sniff babies because of ... like you just said, it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I don't see it the same way. But all right, thank you for letting me know. And then I know that, okay, this is not a conversation I want to have, because we're not even on equal footing here. Like, we're not even on the same platform. So, like, let's not continue to have this conversation.
Yeah, totally.
Well, but I'm not good at this either, so.
Yeah, and I think you can show up in a way where you're asking those kind of questions and you're maybe even part of the conversation. And eventually someone will ask, because I've had this, like I don't get into political debates, but I've had family members like come to me and say, hey, Kip, like, what do most conservatives see it this way? Right. And then I'm like, oh, this is a perfect time to share.
Right.
You know what I mean? But other than that, I'm not kind of shoving it down their throat. Yeah.
No. So just be intentional.
All right, Martin Stewart, any recommendations for steps to try and reach out to other men locally to start a men's group?
Yeah.
I only laugh because I just know your answer, but go ahead.
What do you think it is?
Reach out and start a men's group.
Like the answer's in the question.
Yeah.
It's
like, just
very easy.
Like,
all right, look, but I'm going to be more helpful than just that, because you're right. That is the answer. And that's like off the cuff. That's what I would typically say. I'm just going to try to be a little bit more helpful here.
Okay. Which is super rare.
Yeah. That I'm going to be genuine and nice and compassionate and understanding and
helpful.
empathetic.
Yeah.
Helpful. Yes. Okay. The question you just asked, let me back up. You want to find other men in your circle, in your local area. That's good. You should want that. The question you just asked, every other man who knows that this is somewhat important is asking themselves the same damn question. And what all of them are doing is they're like, oh, well, like if there was only something I could show up to, then I would show up and I would do it. And so you've got like 20 guys who could potentially be in your circle, and all of them are just like dinking around wondering who's going to start this thing. And guess what it takes? One guy who says, I'm going to do this. So what you do is you pick a night. Thursday evening, we're going to do Bible study at 6:00. Saturday morning, we're going to do basketball at the church or the park. Tuesday afternoon, we're going to start a golf league. Wednesday morning, we're going to do a book club. Whatever. I don't care what your thing is. Like, pick your thing. Pick your poison. There's a bunch of other guys who like the same thing you do. Okay. You got the date. You got the time. You got the activity. And then you get out your phone and you call the guy that you work with and you say, hey, bro, like, I know we've never hung out outside of work, but I know that you're also into golf. And on Thursday evening, we're going to be starting up a golf league, and I wanted to see if you wanted to come along. And you call 15 guys. 5 of them will show up, or maybe less, maybe 3, or maybe 1, or maybe nobody shows up. Yep. And then next Thursday evening, you send out the same text to the 15 guys, and you're like, hey, guys, I know 2 of you came last week. It was good to golf with you too. The other 10 or 13 guys couldn't make it for whatever reason. I just want to let you know, Thursday night, 6:00, golf league. And you're going to have, instead of 2 guys show up, you're going to have 3. And then the next Thursday, not to beat a dead horse, you send out the same text. Hey, guys, we had 3 guys here. We had a great time. We learned about X, Y, and Z, and I beat so-and-so, and I made $50, and this guy lost $50, and it was a good time. And we're going to do it again Thursday at 6:00 at this golf course. See you guys there. Let me know if you're in. And you're going to have 7 guys show up. And the next time you do it, you're going to have 4. And the next time you do it, you're going to have 8. And the next time you do it, you're 6. And the next time, 10. You have to be consistent. You have to take initiative because nobody else is going to do it. That's the only reason I have a job. This is the only reason, guys, I have a job, because you won't do it. So when people say, well, Ryan, what makes you qualified? I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
Because if every single one of you that believes in how important masculinity was actually doing what I would be doing, I would not have a job. So thank you, I guess. But also just take some initiative, find something you're interested in, pick a date, be consistent, regardless of people show up, whether or not they show up, and just do it every day or every week or whatever your time schedule is, and continue to have the guys invite other people. It's not hard. I mean, it's very, very simple. It just takes a little bit of initiative and a lot of consistency. And you know what? Look, if nobody shows up to golf league on Thursday night, are you going to be disappointed because you get to get in a round of golf? No. Or here's another way. Tap into what somebody else is already doing. So to go back to jiu-jitsu, I know the guys train on Monday and Wednesday night. Guess what I do on Monday and Wednesday night? I go train. That's where the guys are. Like, I don't ask them to accommodate me. I don't wonder when, people are going to find me cool or want to hang. No, that's where the guys are. There's 10 to 15 guys hanging out, training, beating each other up, having a good time, learning. And so I'm going to just assert myself. And it feels awkward, especially the first time you go. You don't know anybody. They have their own culture and their own inside jokes, and you're like, I don't get this or whatever. But you just go, and then you go again the next week, and the next week, and the next week, and eventually you realize, oh, you know what? I'm part of the guys. It's not hard, guys. It just takes initiative. Create it on your own, or go where somebody else has already created it. And I want to reiterate: consistency, 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 consistency. If you do it once, nobody will show up. You'll have this weird expectation about what it should be. You won't meet your expectation. You'll be like, oh, no, nobody cares. This is stupid. What if I said that the first time I ever did an Order Man podcast? I had whatever it was, 60 people download the podcast. I'm like, oh, well, how come 600 people or how come 6,000? I guess people don't want to know about this. And so I said, oh, threw in the towel. What would my life look like 6 years down the road if I would have done that? Be consistent. Take some initiative. Create it yourself, or tap. This is even the lazier way. It's just to tap into what other people are already doing. And that's good too. But those are the two ways to do it.
Cool. All right. Jay Jardulo. Sovereignty.
It's either Jared. I think it's Jaredillo or Jaredio.
Or Dio.
I need to ask Jared.
All right.
Jay.
Jardillo. All right, Jay. Sovereignty. Is there a dichotomy between being a sovereign man and following a system like the Iron Council that dictates a book of the challenge myself?
You cut out a little bit, but I think I got the gist of that. You're asking if there's a dichotomy. No, I think it's on my end. There's a dichotomy between being sovereign and following a system like ours or the book Sovereignty. There's no dichotomy there. There's no discrepancy. This is actually one of the questions I get a lot along these same lines is how can you be a sovereign man and also believe in God and follow in his footsteps? They're at odds with each other. No, they're not at all.
Yep.
They're not at odds with each other because you get to decide. And just because you happen to follow a particular system, whether that's a religious doctrine or the book Sovereignty or the Iron Council, it doesn't mean that you're relinquishing control over yourself, because at any time you could decide to walk away or decide that this isn't going to work for me or decide to take elements and leave others. You still are maintaining your sovereignty. So guys, I'm not interested in blind allegiance and blind support from you. I want you to question whether this is going to work for you, whether this is going to add value to your life, whether what I'm telling you is true or not. Because if I wasn't encouraging you to do that, you could bet that I'm a scam artist, to put it mildly, to put it nicely. I want you to challenge my thoughts and see if they fit into your view or vision of your own life. So look, are you telling me that, I mean, this is how I liken this. So here's my battle planner, all right? So every day I go in and I fill this out. Are you telling me that because I have a system that works for me that I'm less sovereign, I'm less in control of my life? No, I'm actually taking control of my life. I'm actually using my sovereignty to find systems and codes and processes and a band of brothers that are going to actually serve me and my needs. And as soon as I recognize, like if I was doing this battle planner here and I began to acknowledge and recognize that this was no longer serving me as a sovereign man, then it's my responsibility to get rid of this or to tweak it in a way that's going to serve my best interest. So guys, I don't want you to think that, again, whether it's the religion discussion or the Iron Council discussion, that just because you happen to band with other people or you happen to decide that a certain way of looking at life is going to benefit you, that somehow you're no longer sovereign. Because what you're saying is that you're telling me that if you go to church, you're saying that because you've decided to give your life to God, that you're no longer in charge of your own life? I've never understood that. I can't understand that. Because at any time, and I wouldn't do this, at any time I could decide, no, I'm not going to take this path of God. Yeah. It's still my choice. God's given us agency. And I've chosen to follow those footsteps.
It's almost like a level of victimhood where people will go, okay, well, I'm a member of this church. This is what I believe. And then when they're entered that they don't kind of like, or if there's kind of a suggestion or an approach, they'll go, oh, I hate that I have to, like, we'll even use the language. Oh, I hate that I have to do this, or I don't like that I have to do that. And you're like,
you don't have
when
to do
did you
anything.
join something, throw up your hands and then be a victim of it? Right? Like, no religion should ever be that way, right? When we believe something, we should believe it. And if there's aspects of it that we struggle with, we need to figure out why we're struggling with it and still make a conscious choice to follow those, to your point, not blindly. And it's not because like we should be, and at least in my opinion, not that we should be suspicious and be overly concerned about things, but you should be bought in. Like you shouldn't do anything blindly. Why? Because you should be bought into it. You should understand reasoning for it. So then that way you're doing it for the right reason and not doing it just because you're asked to. So it's almost like a form of laziness and lack of critical thinking when we have those scenarios come up where we're like, oh, we're going to blindly go along. It's because we're being too lazy and we're actually not getting bought in and doing the necessary thought process to understand why we're doing those things and why it would be beneficial to us.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about laziness. Not so much of victimhood. I just think it's easier to just follow somebody else's system and think, well, like this is the way you do it. Is it?
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
I mean, I've got mentors.
More lazy than really. Yeah.
It is. And I know Jay's not lazy. I know him personally. He's not a lazy individual. So, I mean, he's asking a good question that a lot of people bring up and contemplate, but nobody's requiring you to do anything. Now, if I was forcing your hand, I had a gun to your head and said, Jay, you have to do it this way. Okay, now your sovereignty is taken. Now I strip you of your sovereignty. Right? Because you're under threat of death to be part of this organization. Okay, now and if you acquiesce to that, you have voluntarily given me your sovereignty, by the way. I'm attempting to take it, and if you acquiesce, you've given it to me. But nobody's holding it. Jay, look, you call me up tomorrow and you say, hey, Ryan, I hate everything you stand for. I don't want to be part of this, and I'm out. And I'd say, you know what? I wish you the best on your path. Good luck. And I would genuinely mean that. That's sovereignty. You've decided to be here, which means that you've made a sovereign decision to be here.
Yeah. What's your take on you hear this every so often, like cults, right? People, like, oh, he's part of this cult and whatever. And sometimes when I hear that, I'm like, they still have control of their own mind, right? Like they're still like making a conscious part of something that someone else would classify as a cult. And thus, I don't. Do you get what I'm saying?
It cut out again. I think we're having some internet connectivity issues. Hold on one second.
Yeah, no worries. It was a dumb question anyway.
Totally. I'm going to give you I actually heard it. I was pretending that I didn't, just to give you a buy on that one.
That's a good strategy. You're like, you know what? You broke out. Next question.
Let's cut that out. Let's cut that one out. Um, I think what you said is you were asking about cults, is what you're asking about. Here's the difference. I'm not lying to you. I'm not manipulating your emotions, and and my motives are pure. That's the difference. Like you're not here to serve me. You're not here to ensure that this thing does what I want it to do. I'm here to serve you, actually. I'm here to give you information and tools and resources and guidance and direction that will serve you. And you're under no threat. You're under no, I can't think of the term, but you're just not under threat. Like there's no consequence to you not being part of this. Like, I'm not threatening you.
Yeah.
I'm not threatening your livelihood. I'm not holding you here by force or coercion. And that to me is what a cult would do, right? Manipulate you, coerce you, force you, strong arm you, play with your emotions. That's not what I'm here to do. So, I mean, if you could take elements of a cult, like you all believe, like a cult, for example, charismatic leader. Like all cults have a charismatic leader. Hitler was charismatic. Like he couldn't do what he did if he wasn't charismatic. Charisma alone doesn't make.
Yeah, and quite amazing what he did, if you think about it. Like,
I mean, that's not the right word I would use, but I know what you're saying.
Not amazing in a good way.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I know what you're saying.
Amazing nonetheless.
Yeah, so if you extract elements of a cult or elements of a movement that are negative, then yeah, I guess you could maybe liken some of that stuff to what we're doing here. But if you look at it as a whole, I don't.
Yeah. Well, and just to clarify, my question was really around like people not having sovereignty in regards to cults, and I don't think you lose your sovereignty just because you're still making a conscious decision. If someone was following a cult, like I don't understand. You know what I mean? Like sometimes there's this sense of like it's a cult, you lose all freedoms, and you won't know that you're you're not controlling your mind anymore.
But here's the difference.
And it's like, wait a second, you can still make a choice, no?
No. You can, but the problem is if you're making a choice on flawed data or flawed input, then yes, it's still your responsibility. I'm not absolving you of the responsibility.
Yeah.
But if somebody's manipulating you to the point where you're not making decisions with all of the information at hand, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like that's a genuine problem. If I was lying to you and I was making things up and I was keeping you here and sheltering you from certain information or input from other people, that's a problem. It's still your responsibility. I'm not saying that, but it's a problem on my end that I'm not giving you access or allowing you access to all the information and assuming that because you're an adult that you can make your own decision. I think that's the difference. So these people who get caught up in cults, yes, they're still responsible for their life. And I don't know this. I'm just saying this anecdotally. I imagine that a lot of these people are very weak-minded people. And they're very easily controlled or manipulated. I imagine a lot of these people are probably damaged and probably have interpreted some of their life as being traumatic and that they need somebody to rescue them. And that's a problem because then they make themselves susceptible to a charismatic individual who does not have their best interest at heart and will shield them from the information that could possibly serve them in order to force feed information that they have selected to get them to do what they want to do. So there's a problem on both sides when you're talking about a cult and cult-like behavior.
Yeah. All right. Grant Holmes, my mother listens to your podcast regularly. She has reached out to my wife and is asking how to handle my other sister's left-leaning views of masculinity. It seems like my sisters appreciate my actions and my example that I set, but I'm at the same time, they believe men who act like women are truly masculine. Would you suggest doing anything else besides setting a damn good example and showing my family what sovereignty produces? Sometimes that seems passive versus maybe going out of my way and having a discussion with them on the topic.
I mean, I might have a discussion about it because it sounds like maybe they're intrigued or interested in it. So I might talk about that. I wouldn't get drawn into a battle because you might. Yeah. So have the discussion. If it gets contentious, maybe you bow out and say, hey, it's cool. I just wanted to share some thoughts and sounds like you don't appreciate them. And that's fine. Keep doing what you want to do. But there's a scripture, and I don't have the scripture reference right offhand. You guys will know better than I will. But by their fruits ye shall know thee. By their fruits ye shall know thee. So what's going to happen is these feminine men continue to live their lives in feminine manner. They're going to produce less than desirable results for themselves, their families, their communities, their businesses, and every other area they show up. And people will see that. And they'll interpret it as weakness because, frankly, it is not to step into who you are. And then they'll look at the guy across the street, or in this case, you, the other family member, who's bold and strong and courageous and assertive and has a set of skills and leads his family effectively. And they'll think, that's a real man. Because by their fruits, they shall know you. So you just continue to produce. You continue to lead your family effectively. You continue to raise good sons and daughters. You continue to inspire and lead hand in hand your wife. And they will see it. They may not see it now because nothing's hard right now.
Yeah, we can get away with being that way. Yeah.
Yes, I know we're in the middle of COVID and everything else, but nothing's hard. Which is nice, but also we're not exposed. It's like Warren Buffett's thing that a rising tide lifts all ships. I think it was Warren Buffett that said that. And he also said that when the tide goes out, you get to see who's naked. Yeah. The tide's in right now. Once that tide goes out, everybody will know who's exposed and who's vulnerable. And it isn't going to be you. And so in times of prosperity, men, and this is what I talked about in the book Sovereignty, I said that in times of abundance and prosperity, we're put up on the shelf, and it's like that whole idea of in case of emergency, break glass here. So men are put up on this shelf because we're not needed. Our masculine energy isn't needed in times of prosperity and abundance. Who do you think created that? Now, when shit hits the fan and everybody's scared and things are going down, what do? They run to the wall and they break the glass and they pull out the real men. Not the men who are feminine, not the men who don't have a set of skills, not the men who are weak and cowardly. They can get away with it in an easy world. But in times of emergency, they're going to break that glass and call upon you. And that's coming, guys. That's coming. That might be an isolated experience within your family or your extended family, or it could be a cultural or national or even international event. But that time is coming. And everybody will know who the men are and who the men aren't. And you better find yourself in the right category. And the only way people are going to see is by your fruits. And they're going to think, I need to be around that guy because that guy is going to give me what I need, which is safety, comfort, security, prosperity, the things that people are looking for when they don't have it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kelby Jones, I've recently decided to take the role of male role model in my 3 nephews' lives. I don't have any kids of myself, and their life is a wreck, along with their mother, my sister, and the other family members. I travel to work, so I don't get much face-to-face time with them. They are always staying with my grandmother, my mother, and my sister, and never have any male interactions that's positive. Where should I start? I have plans for weekly Zoom calls in my battle plan, and I call and text every day to have topics of conversation during the week, but I'm at loss of where to begin the process of trying to portray to them what becoming a man is all about, since I never had those lessons growing up either.
So you guys get to learn together. How cool is that? Did he say how far away he is from his nephews?
No, he didn't. He just says limited face-to-face time, so he's having to do Zoom calls and text. Unless you're geographically not in the area, I would say screw that bullshit and go pick up your nephews and go do some things together with them. Like go to the basketball court, go play tennis, go to the jiu-jitsu mats, get physical with them. Weekend.
Camping, totally. Go on a hike, whatever. Like be safe. I'm not telling you to be reckless, but be safe. But go get them. Go get them. And be manly with them. Like you don't have to know this stuff to expose them to experiences. You know, like maybe you've never shot a gun in your life. So take your 3 nephews to the shooting range. And you can learn while they're learning. That's cool. And by the way, I'm not saying that you have to shoot a gun to be manly. I'm just saying that that's an opportunity for you to learn, for them to learn, and they're going to draw so many lessons on that experience outside of a Zoom call. I mean, basically you're a school teacher right now. No boy wants to listen to a school teacher. You got to get in their face. You got to get in their grill. You got You got to choke them. you got to arm wrestle them. They got to, I made a post on social media long time ago, like 3 years ago. And I'm like, we like loud noises. We like things that smell weird and something else. And I can't remember, but do that. Get them around loud noises. Go to the racetrack. Better yet, get them a bike and teach them how to ride a dirt bike. We like loud noises. They smell the gasoline. I mean, look, even this, like you're sitting around and you're just farting, like literally farting and having a good time. That's a more engaging experience than being on a Zoom call with them, because we like things that smell weird and it's funny. And then you can have conversations and you can laugh and you can play. And that's what boys are about. And society doesn't want you to do that, right? You have to have manners. You have to be quiet. You have to be respectful. You have to color within the lines and cross your legs and say your pleases and thank yous. And there's a time for that, sure. And there's a time to rip the loudest fart you ever have. There's a time to try to catch the most air on a dirt bike that you ever could. There's a time to blow something up. There's a time to try to choke each other out. And all of that is being stripped away from our young men. And they're asked to behave like girls. And what a shame. So go get around loud noises. I wish I could remember what the third one was. It was loud noises, things that smell, and I don't know, something else. You'll figure it out.
Danger or no?
Sure. Risk. There has to be risk. You're not going to be reckless, but there has to be an element of risk to it.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. We used to make ramps all the time when we were kids. And it wasn't until we decided to put glass down where you might wreck that it got more enjoyable. Because you're like, all right, you're going to get impelled if you don't clear it, you know?
And it's better. And you know what? I bet some of you didn't clear it and you wiped out and you have cuts and you probably still have the scars to show it. Look, I'll give you an example. I don't know if you can see because my arms are so big, so I can't pull this windbreaker up here. Right here, you can't see it. But because, again, I can't pull my windbreaker up. But right here, I've got a scar. It's like an inch-long scar just above my elbow. So when I was a kid growing up in Parowan, Utah, we had this hill that we'd go behind. We called it Crimson Hills because there was a little it must have been some apartments or something right below this hill. It was the best tubing hill in all of Parowan. And we'd go – it wasn't long, but it was steep. And so we'd get my buddy, Kelly Stoll. He'd steal tractor tube tires from his family's ranch. And we'd grab these tractor tube tubes, and we would go up this hill, and we'd hike to the top of the hill. Well, one day we had this incredible idea that like 6 of us should all get on this tractor tube at the same time. So we all piled in, and I got in first, and then my buddy Cody and Jed and Stoll and Truman and all these other guys. We all get in, right? And the whole idea with Crimson Hills is that there's a stop point on the hill. So you get at the top and you slide down in the snow, and then when you hit that tree, it's like a juniper tree, you all say bail, bail, and everybody
Before you
bails.
hit the tree?
No, because at the bottom of the hill there's a barbed wire fence. And so what we would do is we found this old car hood, and we said, all right, so we don't kill ourselves, we're going to put this car hood in front of this fence. We're just going to lean it up. So if we hit something, we're not going to hit the fence, but we're going to hit the car hood, the metal car hood.
The metal wall.
So we all pile on this tractor tube. We get on the top and we're like, all right, go. And we launch. And we're cruising and I'm having fun. Everybody's smiling and laughing. And we get to that tree and everybody's like, bail. So everybody bails. I'm on the bottom. I don't have time to bail. Man, I hit that fence so hard, and I went through the fence, and I kind of like came to and realized what happened, and I was literally hanging on the other side of that fence. My arms were stuck because the barbed wire had caught on my clothes, so my arms were hanging up, and my legs were hanging up, and I was hanging on the other side of that fence, and I kind of like navigated and pulled myself off there or whatever, and I had this huge gash on my arm, and it took months to heal. I said, oh man, should I go get stitches? They're like, I don't know, put some ice in it. Maybe it'll stop bleeding. And that's exactly what I did. So I grabbed some snow and I just packed it with ice or snow, the wound with snow. And it stopped bleeding. So I'm like, I guess I don't need stitches. I still have the scar to show, but you know what? I love that scar.
Yeah.
because that was fun and that bonded us. And that's something that's being stripped away, both literally and figuratively, from society. And we're weaker because of it. We're weaker because kids don't get hurt. My mom, when I was younger, she would send me out and she would literally lock the screen door of our house and she'd say, go find something to do. And I'd always bitch and moan for like an hour. Let me in, I gotta pee, I wanna watch TV, blah, blah, blah. And she'd say, nope, go find something to do. And then before long, me and my buddies would go find something to do. I remember we'd ride bikes all over. I got shot in the back with a guy, I was on his property, I got shot in the back with a salt pellet gun. Because he didn't want us on our property. He didn't hurt us, but he shot me with a salt pellet gun. And then we'd climb on people's houses. Man, we literally climbed on people's houses, and we had G.I. Joes, and we'd take napkins, and we'd find string, and we'd tie little parachutes, and we were on people's house. I don't even know whose houses we were on, but we were on their houses, and we were throwing our guys off and seeing if the parachutes we built would actually work. Like, we've robbed our kids of this opportunity to like grow and experience, specifically boys, to grow and to experience and to live life, and we're worse because of it. It's so sad, man. So I'm getting off on a tangent here and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, get off of Zoom, okay? Go pick them up, go shoot, go wrestle, go play, go explore. Get a paintball guns. Buy 4 of them. Go buy 4 paintball guns or airsoft guns and buy some masks. I want you to be safe, and say, hey, I'm going to give you a 10-second head start, and then I'm going to unload on you. That's when I got my airsoft guns, because we got them for our events, and you've done that with us, Kip. The first thing me and my son did is I said, all right, let's go test these out. So we went and put our masks on. I'm like, I don't know, stand 20 yards away. And so he stood 20, and I shot him right in the kneecap, and he dropped, and he's crying. So he gets up pissed, and he shot me right in the dick. And we laughed and had fun, and it was fine, and we were better for it because we bonded and have stories to tell. And this is what you need to do with your boys. Get them out of Zoom, get them out of the classroom, get them away from girls for a minute, and just go be men. Which at times is stupid and silly and reckless and maybe even a little dangerous, certainly an element of risk, but just go experience. That's what they need from you.
Love it, man. All right, Blake Gann. Many times as men, we take ourselves too seriously. I believe that most of the time we should be taking ourselves seriously, but of course, there's always a time and a place. So with that said, what are your thoughts on ways for men that can lighten up and express some humor and et cetera without losing too much of their seriousness or without being stiff? Perhaps practicing humility would play into this.
I think I just answered that question.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, just go have fun.
Have fun.
No agenda. Like, just go shoot each other. Just go wrestle. Just go play. Just go. Don't worry about what's the lesson that's being learned here. Nah, man, just go have fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, and that's been a breakthrough for me this past year, where so much of what success looks like is like I feel good, but I come across stiff and boring and too serious and not fun. And then I think my kids don't want to be around me. I mean, they're not like, oh, I look up to dad because he's so productive and he takes care of things. No, it's because I'm enjoyable to be around. And and I run into that fault very easily where I can get things done and not be fun to be around. Like, those are usually in conflict. So
I'm with you.
I have to remember that a lot.
So here's a small example, because I like giving these examples because then people can see. But the other day I went on a walk with my wife and kids, and one thing my wife started doing, and I didn't know, but she started doing, is we go on our walk, there's this little point where she stops, and then all of the kids, they race from one point to the other, and then she times them. So my youngest went, and then my second, and then my third, and then my fourth, and she times them all to get to that next point. And then so all 4 kids went, and they're standing there at the end, and I'm like, hey, well, my turn. And my wife's like, are you going to go? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to go. Like, I want to race. And my kids are like, are you going to go, Dad? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go. And I smoked him. I blew him out of the water, by the way. And I rubbed it in their faces. Not mean, but like fun, like just maybe let your hair down a little bit and just have fun. Like, you don't always need to be the pillar of masculinity and like the beacon of the household with this stoic. Just go have fun. You guys know how to do it. My kids bring that out because it is. And I'm as guilty as you, if not more so, of that serious tone. But like, get around kids, like get away from adults and just go get around kids and just play. Just play.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very easy to act like a kid if I let myself.
It's good. It's
all
good.
right.
Like the other day we built that in our barn, we built that pulley system. Did you see that?
Yeah, where you're lifting your kid up really high. I was like, there's a lot of trust happening because I thought
as soon as I got him high, I'm like, oh, we better let him go. But it was fun.
Yeah.
And we built this there was a pulley in our barn. I'm like, let's use that and let's get a rope. And what can we put at the end of this rope? And my son's like, put tires on there. I'm like, okay. So we threw one tire on there. He's like, nah, it's not heavy enough. He's like, throw 3 on there. 3 was way too heavy. He's like, all right, well, guess we'll do 2. You know, like you just go. That's all I can say is just go have fun. It's easy.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny, like our kids pick up stuff from us. Like sometimes when I act crazy, they're like, Dad, this is like they'll start like telling me I shouldn't do it. You know what I mean? And I don't see that as a good thing. I see that as like, we're not having enough fun. Like we need to have fun more often because they're too reserved, you know, in regards to what we're doing. It usually results in car driving, church parking lot with 6 inches of snow, and all my kids are like, this is so dangerous. I'm like, I don't care. You get in the driver's seat. Let me show you how to power slide.
That's right. That's right. That's awesome.
All right. Charles Phillips, as someone new to the IC and someone with a lot of liberal friends, what advice do you have for navigating the 3 Ps in social circles that is in disagreement with the concepts and consider them toxic? Get new friends. I'm just joking.
No, I think that's actually pretty good advice.
Yeah.
They're not good. I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions here.
Well, are they in line with how you want to show up and what's important to you?
Right. And if they are, cool. And I'm not saying everybody has to agree on everything because we have friends for different purposes. You know, there's people that I have that see things politically different than me, but we don't talk politics. We enjoy a different type of relationship and we can hunt together or train together or whatever. And that's the extent of our relationship and it's all wonderful.
Yeah.
But the idea that I don't even know that this should even be brought up unless it's just like over the top, blatantly obvious that they're like picking at you and poking at you. And in that case, they're probably not serving you very well. Otherwise, like, how would this even get brought up? I have liberal friends and it's not like, oh, that's my liberal friend. And I don't even know because we don't talk about that stuff. We just talk about other things and it's fine. We're so polarized and we're so tribal and I just don't think we need to be there. So, you know, if there's some situation where it's negative and it's not good for you, then I think your advice of find new friends is dead on. But if it's like, no, I don't talk with that guy about politics, but I enjoy everything else about a relationship, cool. Enjoy everything else about your relationship. But again, they're going to acknowledge, they're going to see. If you stick around in the Iron Council and you do everything that we've showed you and you believe in the system and you tap into what we're doing, they're going to see improvements in your life. You're going to start losing weight. I don't know your situation, but you're going to start losing weight. You're going to start being a better leader of your family. You're probably going to have more sex, which is that's going to show. You're going to get promotions. You're going to be more confident. They're going to see that and be like, what in the world is going on with this guy? And then you tell them, they're like, what? Really? Yeah, really. And then one of those friends is going to actually ask more questions and he's going to realize that what you're doing is the path. And the others that don't care find to move on, or you just limit the type of relationship that you have. And that's good too. That's okay. Yeah. All of your friends don't have to be everything to you. Like there's certain guys that are just, those are my training partners that we like to train together and we don't hang out outside of it. I see them every Monday and Wednesday night and we go train and we go hard and we enjoy it and that's it. And then there's other guys, Ryan Daggett, for example, will train and then he'll come over on the weekend and he'll come shoot bows with me and we'll have a good time because that's our relationship. And that's good too. I don't expect that every interaction I have has to be my best friend. I can compartmentalize and have it where it is. Kip, you and I, we're never going to hang out outside of this podcast, ever.
Hell no.
But on this podcast, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
only over the internet. We hang out
That's
over
right.
the internet only.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yep. This is a Zoom
All right.
relationship only.
All right. Tyson Junkers, last guy in the IC.
Yeah, last one.
Do you believe the more we avoid conversations about conflicting subjects, i.e., Trump versus Biden, BLM versus cops, COVID, etc., the more divisive and sensitive we get? We always talk about facing our fears, but when it comes to touchy subjects, most of us would rather avoid the confrontation and hold in anger than to take it on. I would love to start having healthy conversations about subjects people are typically trying to avoid.
You can only have healthy conversations with healthy people.
Yeah.
There's no amount of emotional maturity that you can bring to a conversation and change the tone for somebody who lacks any sort of emotional maturity. So if somebody comes to you, and I've got plenty of people in my life who come to me and we do not agree, and yet they have a high level of emotional immaturity. I've talked about a couple of them here on this podcast, and we can talk about these things. We can do it respectfully and with intellect and with knowledge, and we can challenge each other and ask good questions of each other, and it's great because we both have a level of maturity. And there's other people I would never talk with any of that stuff about. So it's really just about deciphering if this is a person that you can have this type of conversation with or not. And if it is, cool, have the conversations. And if it starts to go south, maybe ease up on the conversation. Because sometimes it will. Even with somebody you respect, a conversation could go south and you're like, hey, you know what, Kip? Like, maybe let's just change subjects, man. I really respect who you are. I don't want to get heated or emotional or be upset with each other. Like, I appreciate the dialogue, but, maybe we ought to cool off for a minute. And then you go on to do whatever it is you're going to do. But you have to decide who you can have the conversation with and who you can't. And there are both types of people and everywhere in between.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments for one of the meetups that we did, I think it was Nashville. The last day, there's probably 50 of us that went out to breakfast that morning. And the conversation, like we're all kind of, because it's in a restaurant and we're all kind of sitting by tables near each other. And towards the end of that breakfast, as some guys filtered out, there was probably 20 of us kind of circled around a booth, and we were debating and discussing, and none of the topics were safe topics.
Safe. Yes.
And it was awesome.
Right.
It was so awesome. I was like, you know what? This is what discussion looks like. This is what logic and critical thinking and controlled emotion looks like. And it was inspiring. And it was a iteration to me, and the reminder to me that, like, how valuable it is to be around high caliber individuals that are healthy in this context. Right. And what the Iron Council at this podcast with the Order Man, what kind of individuals we have amongst us.
Yes.
And it's so cool. It's so cool. Cause I feel like even in the IC, we have some tough topics.
Totally.
And it's
last
great.
week was one
and
of them.
Conversations
we had disagreements.
are amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think in order to do that,
I don't know, it's refreshing.
Yeah, I think in order to do that, you have to have some sort of, if I can speak here, some sort of common purpose or objective. Like in the Iron Council, we're all trying to improve ourselves and improve our lives, and we're actually all rallied behind that, right? Like everybody who joins Iron, and the guys who don't like that idea
mission.
or the way that we do it, they leave. But all of us are wanting to improve ourselves as men, and so we can have conversations that aren't quote unquote safe, that might challenge our own perspective. But again, it's all on the foundation of improving ourselves. And there's been times where I've had to remind guys, hey, look, guys, we're all on the same team. We're all trying to do the same thing. We're not always going to agree. I don't expect that or even desire that. But let's do it respectfully, because we are all on the same team and we have to continue to work together. Those are hard conversations also to have online. So that's one caveat, is like in person, like you said at that event, in person is always better. Always better. Because you can see the nuance and you can see that human being for what he or she really is, as opposed to the bot or the ones and zeros on the behind the screen.
Yeah, totally. All right, should we wrap up? Hey, by the way, did you like that I saved the the masturbation question for you from last week?
You didn't
I
ask.
was laughing so hard.
I can't. I remember you saying it, but what was the? Did you not even ask what the question was?
No, what it was is that question came
remember.
in when I was doing a solo AMA, and I was like, "Oh hell no!" So I
That's
left
right.
it. I left it so you could tackle it last week.
Yes,
So
that's right. I do, and I did answer it last week, didn't I?
yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
I was in the gym
What
and
a
I started
jerk.
laughing because I was like, "Oh yes."
What a jerk.
Those are always fun. Those are always fun conversations.
I'm like, I don't know. Like, do whatever you want, man. Like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
even want to think about that for you. That's the last image I want to have in my mind. Thank you again for bringing that
Yeah.
up, Kip. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to improve the ratings
Just
and the
your
views
small
of the
part.
video.
Just your small part. Nobody's listening anymore,
Um,
anyways. We've been going for over an hour. Everybody's already signed
Yeah.
off. They're like, "Okay, I can't
They're
listen to
like,
these
"I'm
guys
checked
anymore."
All right.
All right,
Just put a teaser in there and we're like, we mentioned masturbation towards the end. So stick
at the
around.
end,
Yeah.
stick around. You'll want to hear this. I promise. You'll want to hear this. All right, let's wrap
There's
up,
your
man.
breakthrough. All right. So, we talked, end of year, sign up for the Battle Ready program. So to learn more, go to orderofman.com/battle ready. We roughly have 4 weeks, and I hate this. And Ryan, I'm assuming you're the same way. Whenever I hear someone like, "Oh, in 4 weeks, I'm going to," no. Life doesn't work that way.
Do it now, man.
Happens right now. So it doesn't matter if it's only 4 weeks away. Get on the path, get some 4 weeks in, if you want to look at it that way. Act today. That's really all you have right now is right now anyway, right? There's no.
Well, the
guarantees
good
on
thing about the
tomorrow,
Battle Ready program is it's a 30-day to Battle Ready program. So,
so this is
that way you
perfect
go
scenario.
through it, and then in 30 days, January 1, you hit the ground running because you've already got everything mapped out and planned out. So this is why you'd want to do it right now.
Yeah. So sign up, orderofman.com/battle ready. We talked about, just the value of the guys that were around, and to join us, to band with us, you can do so on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/orderofman, or you can learn more about the Iron Council. The phrase I like to use is, if you're sitting on the bleachers watching the game and you want to get on the court, you join the court and you join the game by playing, and you do so by going to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And of course, follow Mr. Mickler on Instagram and Twitter at Ryan Mickler. And don't
Somebody
forget,
told me the other day I should set up a TikTok account. I'm like, I don't think I'm there yet, bro.
doing TikTok moves. We can make up our own Order of Man like TikTok dance or whatever.
No, we're probably not going to do that. I'll just come out and say that we're probably not going to be doing that.
You got Christmas coming up, so think about the store. Maybe drop the hints to the wife and your significant others if
we've
you want
seen
to grab
a lot
some
of
swag, so.
we've seen a lot of orders come in from the ladies over the past couple of weeks, I will say. So late guys, that your ladies are getting the hint, so that's good. Keep going. I think I lost you, Kip. Did I lose you? All right, I lost him. Anyways, guys, appreciate you. Great questions today. We will catch you all next week. Until then, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.